And away we go. Welcome, viewers, one and all, to yet another edition of the iGaming Next weekly news live broadcast with myself, Conor Mulhare, and the esteemed Nico Janssen. Nico, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you, brother?
I'm just perfect. Although literally missed the last two editions. I especially miss the music. Right? It actually starts us up, and I'm thrilled. Like every other week. About the overall discussion we're gonna have, but this week is quite special, like really special. We're looking forward to a premiere, having like the three musketeers, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, and while the both of us are taking the spot of D'Artagnan, so there will be real deal experts having their eyes on the ground, their ears on the ground in the Brazilian market. It's awesome. What about yourself?
Absolutely. Very well, yes. And you rightly point out we should say thank you to Playson for introducing us with that funky music just a couple of minutes ago. And thanks to Playson for being, of course, the main sponsor of weekly news. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. And we'd also like to express our thanks to Interactive and Hub 88, another two of our huge supporters. We are very grateful to all of the above. Hello to some of the people in the chat there. Our producer Elizabeth has joined us. We've got Ankit, we've got Sasha, we've got Bogdan. Hello and welcome to the discussion. You may notice, Nico, I'm wearing my special LATAM t-shirt today, and that's because we have got a very special edition of Weekly News this week. We're going to be talking all about Brazil after the big news that came out over there earlier this week. So do make sure that you put any questions in the chat in just a few minutes, because we're going to have three market leading experts joining us, some of the most knowledgeable guys out there when it comes to the Brazilian sports betting and online gambling markets. But before we get into all that, I think we should make a return to form. It's been a couple of weeks now, Nico, and the people want it. I think it's time for, once again, the 10 in 5. What do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, as I missed the last two editions, now won't be like 10 and 5, it's 30 and 15, just to keep things, just to update each and every. No, just kidding. So we will just stick with the 10 and 5. And like always, I will make it within the 5 minutes, of course, gaining a head start. So the former Fortuna CEO, Per Weiderström, will take the lead as CEO of 888. So British bookmaker 888 Holdings named Per Weiderström as its new CEO on this Tuesday, after shrugging off shareholder FS Gaming's call to appoint its candidates for top roles. So if you're not familiar, FS Gaming is a group of investors with 6.6% stake in 888, and they had proposed candidates to be appointed as 888's chair, CEO, and CFO. So good luck and welcome back, as Weiderström has more than 17 years of experience in the online gaming industry and is former CEO of Europe-focused Fortuna Entertainment Group. His appointment as CEO is effective from October 16th, so just 2.5 months to go. It's reporting time as well, and can be their Q2 reports are looking quite good as the revenue is up 24%. So they have reported nearly 43 million in Q1 revenue, which represents a 24% rise year on year, and compared to Q2 2021. However, this is a growth of just 0.1 million, while Kambi's Q2 operating profit unfortunately fell 25% to 7.3 million, but they're still gaining a positive overall result. So Gaming Reels is expecting to see a 32% of EBITDA rise in the forthcoming H1 report. So the supplier expects to see a 34% increase in revenue in H1, so the first half of a year in 2022. when it publishes its full financial report later this year. Kindred reports a 29% growth in revenue for Q2 2023. So the Kindred Group has posted a significant uptick in its financial results for Q2 2023, primarily driven by robust performances in core markets and particularly in the Netherlands. They are the leading operator in Netherlands, and the operator's revenue increased, as said, by 29% compared to the same period last year, reaching roughly 210 million pounds. BetMGM reports a positive EBITDA contribution throughout Q2 2023 after generating 470 million in revenue during Q1, which represents an up of 76%. BetMGM revealed today that its total net revenue from operations for the first half of 2023 was 944 million. That suggests the business generated around 474 million revenue in Q2. Then the French GGR hits a record of roughly 13 billion euros in the financial year of 2022, which makes France the fourth force in Europe. Then heading over to the US, as the NFL doesn't play around and they suspend another player for betting violations. So the NFL indefinitely suspended Denver Broncos defensive end Ioma Uvazuric on Monday for betting on league games during the 2022 season, which means that Uvazurica becomes the 10th player this off-season to being suspended for gambling on games or betting on other sports while being in an NFL locker room. As said, the NFL doesn't play around, and I'm pretty sure we will see other players being suspended as well. Then back to Europe, as Zimpler is about to challenge the Swedish bank ID dispute. So Zimpler has confirmed that it will appeal against the intervention of the Swedish Gambling Inspectorate, Spelinspektionen, which has deemed its business of facilitating payments for unlicensed online gaming operators as illegal. So I'm pretty sure we will see some things on this end as well. And just two more to go. President Volodymyr Zelensky addresses the petition to lift the peri-match ban. As we are all aware, there have been a lot of Ukraine operators being suspended. And following the sanctions against peri-match, Zelensky said there are more than 280 companies and 120 people who, through gambling business schemes, worked against Ukraine, withdrew funds from our state and financed various Russian schemes. So I'm pretty sure we will get an update on this one as well. And last but not least, the European Commission is about to scrutinize the Malta gaming bill. As we are all aware, the Malta minister presidents just enacted the Bill 55, which will secure the MGA licensed operators from demands of other European jurisdictions. So, as said, we will see an update on this one as well. And, that's my 10 and 5, and I'm just thrilled to start things up with our great, great, great guests.
Very good, Nico. Take a deep breath. Very nicely done. Look at this. I don't know if you noticed while you were doing the 10 and 5 just how much the chat is popping off here. It's a very popular session today. Let's say hello to Christian, Jean Carlos, Ankit, Vitorginho. Tudo bem, amigo? De Rio de Janeiro, bom dia. Tío Cardama está aquí también. Che, todo bien, Cardama. ¿Qué pasa, abuelito? Pedro Lucas está aquí. Look, so many people joining us, and I think we know why. It's because we have a really excellent panel. So I think without further ado, it's time to bring on today's special guests. If our producer, Elizabeth, in the background can get the guys on together with us. And here we go. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. You are all, of course, well known as market experts when it comes to Brazil and Latin America. But for the benefit of any viewers who don't know you yet, why don't we do some very quick introductions? Roger, shall we start with you?
Yes, sir. My name is Roger. Nice to meet you all. Prazer em conhecer você. I hope you're all doing well. I am working at ID now, doing all sorts of things around identity verification. And when a new sports betting market opens, like Brazil, which has essentially the potential to be the biggest one in the world, then of course all eyes will be on the player verification and on compliance. So that's what I'm here to contribute to today.
Great stuff. Thomas, why don't you say hello to the viewers too?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Brazil. Bom dia a todos. Muito bom ver tanta gente aqui que eu conheço também. It's great to see a lot of my industry friends. I call them friends as well. Connor, Alessandro is one of my best friends in the industry. So it's always fantastic to join forces and speak along with him. I see Vitoldo as well. I see a lot of guys around. Fantastic. My name is Thomas Carvalhaes. I have been in the industry for just over 12 years, mainly in the B2C sector as in an operator. I have launched many B2C ventures and companies across Brazil and Latin America. I am born and raised in São Paulo area. And currently I am working, as it says down at the bottom there, I'm the managing director for a B2C operation called Vai de Bob. Thank you, Connor.
Thanks, Thomas. Nicely done. And Alessandro, last but not least, why don't you say hello to the audience?
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me here. Well, my name is Alessandro Valente, and I was never an operator, but always involved in certain aspects of the industry, such as an affiliate. More recently, with the help and support of friends like Carlos Cardama and Eugene, etc., we founded the BIS, BIS, which now is B Sigma, the conference that takes place in Brazil. We have also other businesses around the industry, but never as an operator. We are always catering for the segment, but I've been in the market for almost 20 years now. So exciting times, not very positive sometimes, but exciting at least.
Amazing. So we've got a great panel here, guys. We're covering all the areas of the industry. We've got an operator, an affiliate, a service provider. So why don't we get started and talk about just why this is the discussion for this week? Obviously, we had a law change in Brazil back in 2018. It's been 5 years since then. And finally, we have some regulations written and committed to paper in black and white and signed off by President Lula. Thomas, why do you think that's taken so long, and what's the significance of the latest update?
Well, I think the significance is amazing, but I always like to split my answer in at least two portions. Of course, there's many more angles we can look at this. Of course, Connor, we're all happy, we're excited because this is progress. At least something is happening. A first step has been taken, and that is the government, who are the responsible parties in the end of the day, hinting towards, you know what, we take your sector seriously, we understand the importance it has, the relevance, so we're committing to actually making something happen. On the other hand, of course, I know throughout the discussion we're going to cover some other topics, concerns, and everything else. Of course, from a commercial and financial perspective, I would say 99%, if not more, are concerned or objecting against it, but we can cover that. Regarding the question, Connor, as for the 5 years, why has it taken so long, and why is it such a major achievement right now? It's because, again, I don't know if I can say we've been lacking political intention or political goodwill, because there has been attempts, there has been talks and rumors, but never a final signature. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly why it hasn't happened. All we can say is that it hasn't happened. One of the main reasons we can say in the last 4 years as well, one of the reasons, strong reasons, which are very popular and known, is because the former president was elected by a great majority by evangelical supporters who strongly and publicly objected to it. So that made his life harder in a lot of ways as well, as in getting to an end when it comes to that. There's many other factors as for why this hasn't happened, the discussions, deliberations around the law. But I mean, a good thing is that we now have a final black and white piece of paper signed by the president, which regulates fixed quota, fixed odds sports betting. But yeah, exciting times ahead.
Excellent. That's a great summary of some of the difficulties that this regulation has been through over the last few years. But I think you're absolutely right in the sense that it's good to have some indication, at least, of what the plans might be. So, Roger, if I can move on to you, what were your initial reactions to proposals included in these regulations?
I think when you look at the whole situation how it is right now, I think there is a lot of comparisons that you can pull to the German market when it got regulated. It took a very long time. There was a lot of steps to go through, a lot of politics to play, a lot of people and hands to please, a lot of stuff to go through, really. Because at the end of the day, you're talking here about major income, I would say, for the state when it comes to taxes, because at the end of the day, it generates a lot of taxes. And then at the same time, which is a little bit, I would say probably frustrating for everyone, is that we're talking about sports betting only, right? We're not talking about online casino. We're not talking about bingo or poker. So this is obviously something that we will have to, today, the politicians, the regulator will have to deal with, and it's obviously something that you have to work on, and especially also from a, let's say, compliance, anything to do with regulation, player verification, etc. There is also a lot to go through, because at this moment in time there is not a proper framework what needs to happen in order to fully verify those players, in order to make sure that that they're compliant. I mean, again, we as suppliers, we can always help. We can always propose certain things, to help it to go into the right direction, to in the end of the day protect players, but also protect businesses from things such as bonus abuse, etc. So I would say we have made a good start, which is great news. But I think there is a hell of a lot of work for us, for us all to do now. But I think judging by the enthusiasm and really the energy that I can feel in the industry when it comes to Brazil, it is very high, and I think there will be good steps being made forward in the next few months.
Very nice. And I wonder, so you mentioned the taxes there, and I think that's one of the proposals that has set a lot of people talking. There's an 18% tax on operators, GGR, being proposed, which is higher than what was expected. It was expected to be 16%. Alessandro, from your point of view and from the conversations that you're having, what's the reaction within the market been like to that 18% tax rate?
That's at least 95-98% against it. It's completely nonsense to tax so high, and then you have to add the other taxations that they will be adding, like city tax, etc. So it could be as high as 30+%, and taxing the players as well, which is like ridiculous. It sounds like double taxation to some extent, and it's only that, just the casino being completely ignored and not being added. It's unbelievable. Everyone is like unsure about what they're going to be doing. Like, should I switch off my casino vertical? Should I just split the two into different domain names? And because no one actually, or majority of the operators, they don't want to lose that source of income. And if you consider, for me, perfect example, we focus a lot more into casino players rather than sports players. And for me, it's going to be like promoting black market casino operators rather than the new ones licensed. So, the expectation, I think, was pretty high. Everyone in the hype of Brazil, talking about Brazil, every event, conference, magazine, and then something like that comes and is like a bucket of ice and full of, I don't know, I don't want to say any bad word, but it's full of something else in that bucket. Like shit. No, it was terrible, terrible. The majority of the people I spoke about, and they are completely against what was proposed, or the vast majority. One example: if you have the population of Brazil in default, meaning they are in credit score, etc., experience Serasa, they are not going to be able to place one single bet because the bill clearly states that they are not allowed. So we're talking about maybe a fourth of the population of the country not being allowed to create an account, deposit, and place bets. Come on, that's like insane. So, well, there are things to be improved. It is an important step. I wouldn't say it's irrelevant. A bit late. The previous government was a little bit too attached to the religious groups. This one completely the opposite. They are attached to something more interesting. So yes, but they need to do it right.
I think yes.
Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry, Nico.
Go ahead.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So, I think the question here that is from my side, because at this moment in time, poker in Brazil is classed as a skill game, if I'm correct. So also there is, I guess, something to do with the classification of what the Banco do Brasil classes, let's say, all the payments are. So what happens now that the regulation comes in? Will poker be declassified, or what's going to happen there? Because it seems a little bit of a, well, not a little bit of a, but it seems a little bit of a big mess, really.
But it's poker tournament, not poker cash games as we know in vast majority of the countries. So the tournament is classified as a skill game, but not cash games.
So just picking up pretty much the conversation, Thomas, the both of us had when we were doing the panel in Malta, it always depends on the peer group. So what you're comparing. And we have a quite interesting market which has pretty much the same size as Brazil. It's New York. So if you just take a look at the GDP, it's roughly 2 trillions, which is the same for Brazil as well. And in New York, we are facing a taxation of 51%. So if you just take this into account, that okay, if you want to start things rolling, or startup things. There's not everybody will be happy, but if you talk with Bill Pascrell, then Senator Adebu, they are quite happy that, just speaking for New York, that at least the market opened up, because then you have a starting point, and from this point, you can evolve. And especially also New York, we're just speaking about sports betting and sports betting only. So there's also no casino, and usually regulation works in this specific way, as it's really complex. I don't remember any regulation starting fresh and coming up with every vertical. So they always started with one vertical and added another vertical. So Thomas, what is your take on this one?
I think your points are fair. Very, very good points, actually. I agree with the part where you say, yes, it's a beginning. We're actually opening up the sea. We're just like touching the sea right now. We're expecting the waters to open like Moses. I'm going to go into the Bible part of. Anyways, it is my overall feeling is this. We're just touching the water in a lot of ways, and we're going to start seeing things happening now. Your comparison makes a lot of sense to me, Nico. It's a fair comparison. However, the concerns are, number one, for instance, the amount of tax that we're dealing with. And again, we're going to be taxing the player as well. I think the New York, state population perhaps are much more exposed and willing to place a bet on sports than the current situation of the Brazilians. From a commercial end, and it's almost like a consensus. We, myself and Alessandro, we are in many WhatsApp groups. I'm sure he's in much more than me, but on the WhatsApp groups that I am, nobody. I mean, from an operator perspective, affiliates and people on the financial side, on the commercial side, we're not happy at all. Of course, if you look at the legal professionals, the lawyers and everybody else, it does make a lot of sense to them. They're overall happier because it helps them set the tone right. However, from us, from a commercial perspective, and considering as well, Nico, that we're talking fixed odds, fixed quota only. We're not talking, and please correct me, anybody, if I'm wrong here, it doesn't really contemplate live sports betting yet, or live odds or dynamic odds. This is really just fixed quota as it stands. Of course, we're expecting further deliberation of the scenario in Congress and the Senate. We're expecting that this law will morph, will change into something better. Perhaps there's even discussions right now, Alessandro, that they will allow this to expire so that then they can actually throw in further verticals, perhaps live odds and stuff. But for me, Nico, one of the questions, just to wrap up my answer to you, one of the key questions I've been raising in the WhatsApp groups, and nobody has answered me yet, I said, okay, I want to see a clear ROI plan on your fixed quota sports betting business only. Let's say you're going to pay 18%, a sneaky increase from 16 to 18%. You're going to pay 18% tax only fixed quota. Then you're going to pay ISS, which is another Brazilian tax. You're going to pay COFINS. You're going to pay PIS, which is a legal thing that you have to pay for your employers. We're getting close to 31%. Then you have your marketing budget. Then you have all the expenses that you need to pay towards affiliation. You have a below-the-line expense, like everybody does. Does it make sense from an ROI perspective? I want to know the magic formula that some operators are going to be using to actually make this work from a commercial, purely financial end. Because as it stands, especially considering, Nico, not the size, not the potential, but considering the actual status of the market in Brazil and the actual amount, the LTV, the lifetime value per player in Brazil, for me, as we say in Portuguese here in Brazil, a conta não fecha. It just simply doesn't make mathematical or financial sense as it stands. But again, of course, I would happily eat a humble pie if I need to. I would stand corrected if there is an argument or an ROI justification for this. But as it stands, I'm really, really struggling. It's really puzzling. I'm sorry for the very long answer.
No, it's perfect. Just perfect.
Money
Thanks.
for acquisition. Sorry to interrupt, but money for acquisition will be no longer the same amount. So we are not considering, but we have to sponsorship of football clubs, media buying on TV, radio, etc. So the money will be short if we go in that route. With that level of taxation, there will be a shortage of money for all this acquisition. I don't know where operators will take the money for acquiring players, educating players, and etc. It's not a mature market.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, I think between you guys, you've absolutely got the core question of the issue here, which is, can this, with the regulations as introduced, can this become a commercially viable market? And you have a couple of considerations. First, there's the cost to operators themselves, as we've discussed, and then also we have the, let's face it, inferior customer proposition as compared to offshore operators. Like we said, it's limited strictly to fixed odds sports betting, no casino. In addition to that, players are going to be taxed on their winnings at, what is it, 30% or something? So 2 questions from me, really, a 2-part question, which is there any way a market can work under those conditions? And 2, now that we have this 120-day period for the regulations to be debated in Congress, how much of what was included in the initial proposals can actually be changed and overhauled? Who wants?
Okay.
I've spoken too much.
We are hoping for the bill to be dropped and something else comes that makes a little bit more sense. And we need to. That is the only hope, really, because it's not going to be possible to. Many businesses will just fail or close down or go to the underworld for real. It's not going to be viable to operate in a green area. No, it's impossible.
Yeah, and I see a comment here from I think it's Bernard Henning. Some operators might not survive the high cost. And what do we realistically think those operators will do? Do we think they're just going to give up on the market? They're not. What happened in Mexico, happened in Portugal. You know what happened there? We had a major, because in Portugal, remember, they started taxing on wagering. It was crazy. They started taxing on rollover back in the days when they just started the regulation. And then only 2 operators actually stuck to the market. And then we had a lot of illegal underworld, like Alessandro wisely pointed out, underworld operators. Let's stay away from legal law terms here. But yes, there's, in my perspective as well, my main concern here is that this is going to create or nurture a very unfair perspective. And this is going to push the operators that have been here already, and they've seen how profitable the market can be, how much sense, commercial sense this will make. They're not going to give up on the market. And then my question is, will Brazilian authorities be able to cater for this thing, to block IPs, to block underworld operating websites and stuff like that? And the taxing on the player, Connor, again, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that this comes from this comes from the way they currently tax players on lottery winnings. As it stands, this already happens in Brazil. Any winnings over 2,000 reais or just over 2,000 reais, you get taxed at 30% income tax. It becomes part of your income, so you have to pay for that as well. But again, we haven't seen anything like this in the world. We haven't seen any other market in the world that first considers sports betting as a form of lottery. There's no other market that does that. We are the only ones. We're reinventing the wheel in that regard. Sports betting as a lottery. Second, copying, grabbing the way we see lottery. Okay, this is how we tax. This is how we charge. This is how we, the government, bill lottery operation. Let's just do the same for sports betting. It's frustrating after so much deliberating, after so many, I haven't taken them, but after so many trips to Brasilia, guys trying to educate the government, try to show them this is how volatile a sports betting market operation is. Volatility works like this. Odds work like this. It's not a lottery operation, guys. And we still get a final bill signed like that. It's frustrating to say the least. Vitoldo's making very good comments there. I'm not going to read them, but I really recommend you guys should go through them. because Vitodo has a lot of context as for why we're still seeing Brazilian sports betting market the same as lottery, and why we're taxing the operator as well, Colin.
Yeah.
I like what you're talking about, Vitor. I like what he mentioned, commenting about what Nico said. We didn't need to follow the path of starting from scratch, starting all wrong, and then learn by mistakes. We have plenty of references in the market, UK, Malta, etc. Just pick and choose the best parts of it and then build up something good. What's wrong? What's wrong? They will just lose it. I don't think this will go. I hope some of these politicians are going to watch that or read the following weeks, the news, etc. Because I don't think this will be successful. No one wants that. Just maybe a few players will try to get it for whatever reason. I want to show off in my stock exchange report that I have a license in Brazil, because I'm not going to be making any money. There is no business sense. So I hope they will listen to the industry and eventually let it go and start all over from scratch and make some more business sense of what is this attempt or a failed attempt happened.
So, Alessandro, you touched on a very, very, very a good point with respect to we already have regulations in quite a decent amount of countries already, and you could literally just pick things where you're like, okay, this is feasible within our industry or within our geolocation, etc. But cutting a long story short, except the UK Gambling Commission with their white paper and their specific consultations where they are like, okay, we will actively listen to the operators, to the industry, and might come up with, adjustments of our white paper. Actually, no jurisdictions ever followed this path. So it would have been like Brazil leading the pack, like, okay, we took this from Sweden, we took this from Germany, although I'm pretty sure no one will take anything from the German regulation, except probably how you verify and identify a player. So cutting this story quite short, but as said, there are examples out there, especially also with the Dutch regulation, where you have a cool-off period, where it's like, okay, once the market is regulated, if you still operate as black markets operation, this will be added to your time once you're licensed, and this will literally kind of, secure the market, at least for the licensed entities. But Roger, you wanted to come up with something else. Cobra, übernehmen Sie.
Yes, sir. I think one thing that we definitely shouldn't forget is that I think Brazil has a big chance to be the most unique and the most thriving and the biggest market when it comes to sports betting casino in the world. I mean, let's be clear, because the country is very sports fanatic, first of all. Also probably country number one when it comes to that. But like my main point is I'm trying to make here is we shouldn't create another regulation where only the big boys survive. Markets only thrive when you have smaller players, when you have innovation, when you have people that come through, I don't know, just through simple ideas, like the American dream or the Brazilian dream in this case, if you want to call it, But if we then make the licensing costs, and I've seen obviously the proposal of 6.5 million, which seems obviously quite crazy to let's say smaller companies, but as I said, Brazil has a really, really big opportunity here, and they definitely should let the smaller players be part of it, because we don't want to see the same brand names over and over again, because it comes repeatable, and we might as well call it Microsoft against Apple in the future as well, something like that. So they should definitely take that into consideration going forward.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. Small business or medium size will not survive in the current scenario, and this has to be taken in consideration, especially if you want to bring that sort of operation to the country instead of like just leaving foreign companies to explore the market from abroad.
Yeah. Now, I know that Brazilian politics is notoriously difficult to predict, but let's say that this bill expires or it's dropped by Congress in the next 120 days. What do you guys think will be the timeline thereafter for getting a new draft on the table? Or is it just going to be indefinite again and keep going on forever and ever?
One more thing, sorry to interrupt. So, as probably not all the listeners are quite familiar with this specific 120 days period, Connor, could you just walk us through, or anyone else from the panel, just walk us through why these 120 days period are so important as of now?
So I'll leave that one to the experts, I think. Thomas, Alessandro, you guys on the ground
Thomas,
a bit
go
closer.
for it. You are the expert in law.
No, normally when a provisional measure is signed, because it's signed by presidential decree, presidential signature, not decree, sorry. Now the Congress has to analyze it. Now, normally there is a timeline, there's a deadline. So the importance is, it's more like an allowance. It's a time allowance because the Congress and the Senate, they have so many matters. And there's so much happening in Brazil from a political perspective. There's a lot of, how do you call it? There's a lot of reforms. You know, there's a lot that needs to happen in Brazil. This is not the main government topic right now. It's one of the main, because the Brazilian government currently wants to, and they need to generate a lot of taxation, a lot of income. So I was watching the news. Sports betting regulation is listed as one of the main new factors for generating taxation and money for the country. It was like on the third or fourth from a list, with a projection of generating 12 billion reais bull case scenario. That is in 3-4 years from now, not now. This year, if everything goes according to government plan, they will be generating 2 billion reais, and that's about 400 million euros, 450 million euros, more or less, this year. In 3-4 years' time, they're expecting to be able to generate 3 billion euros in the bull case scenario, best case scenario. Anyways, so the importance of those 120 days is that politicians now have to knock their heads. They have to make their claims, say what needs to be added, what doesn't need to be added, state their case. Are they against? Are they in favor? We have those days, and then we're going to have a final bill. That's what Alessandro and I are meaning when we say we hope this is going to change. We hope now that the congressmen and the senators will have better common sense, as in, hey, what about this? Let's discuss this as well. Can we add this to the bill? Can we add this clause? And then after, at the end of 120 days, then we're going to see what happens. Vitoldo is providing, actually, Connor, a much more technical answer there, besides my elaboration here. Because a provisional measure is an act from the president with law status, the Congress must convert it into a proper law in 120 days. So it is a deadline as well, which we're hoping for some change. Thank you, Vitoldo. Appreciate that.
So let's say that, Congress, I mean, does it have the power to completely reject the bill and introduce a new one instead? I think you mentioned earlier something about allowing it to expire. If something like that happens, do you have any idea what the timeline would be like to get new regulations in, or is it all just uncertain still?
Oh, unpredictable, huh? As any other politicians had. But there is a pressure. There's a pressure from media, from everyone, operators, and there's no lobby, because lobby is illegal in Brazil, but there is kind of a lot of pressure going on. So they have to do something. I would expect that if they drop maybe early next year, end of this year, we see there is a bill on the Senate as well, which is like the upper house. And that could be the one discussed that opens up the whole thing to a casino, brick and mortar, online, etc. So that is actually the best scenario, I think, because then it opens for real the whole market into a whole different industry.
Yeah. Well, we're getting towards the end of our hour-long session here. We've got maybe 5 or 10 minutes left. And I always think it's very nice if we can end on a positive note. So thinking about the regulations that we've got in this provisional measure, was there anything you saw in there that you think we'd like to keep in the final bill when it comes down? I mean, there's no limit on the number of licenses. That's kind of nice.
That's good.
Licensees must have a localized presence in Brazil. I guess that's good for the local economy. Is there anything else that's that you thought that's good and that should stay in the regulations?
Oh, just the news on regulation is helping the industry to at least, kind of minimize the taboo around casino, around gambling. They call it jogos de azar, so games of bad luck. This is kind of changing. So the law that was passed in 2018, now the regulation, so all of that is already helping the cultural behavior to change. So it is positive to that extent, but that's it. Stops there.
Yeah, I think, like I actually mentioned this in Malta as well. This is just, again, a result of how this sector is imposing itself, Connor, throughout the last 4 or 5 years, or even more, but more intentionally, of course, in the last few years. What the government is doing is just becoming unbearable for them to continually seeing a sector growing and growing without regulation and moving a lot of money in and out of the country without regulation. So, of course, I agree 100% with Alessandro. The simple fact that this is happening, this is taking place, is good news. That's the good thing about it. The fact that there's unlimited licensees as well, for me, it's one of the very few things that they got right. So I actually appreciated that from the bill as well. Prediction from my end. What I think is going to happen is within the 120 days, something really is going to happen. Something is going to turn, and it's going to change. And we're probably going to see other verticals, games of chance. I have a more neutral term, Ale. I'm not going to use games of
I hate this one as well.
I'll call it games of chance, or RNG.
Jogos de fortuna.
I think games of chance will probably be added in as well. I don't think Jogo do Bicho will be added. Although it's a very cultural, popular game, I don't think they're gonna mess with that terrain there. But those will be my predictions. Things will change for the better within the next 3 months for sure.
Roger, just before we sign off, how about you? Any predictions, anything you'd like to keep from the regulations, and any predictions for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? What do you think?
I mean, as I said, I'm really hoping that it will be reconsidered to make it a fair game to the existing landscape. That people don't have to go through, obviously, like we just said, through the underworld to survive. But rather to make the market a success, and hopefully just again repeating that online casino is included, because that is a huge part of gambling and obviously iGaming as well. So of course it should be included, and otherwise you're going to end up in when you do that, you can see how it ends up in Germany. That's a perfect example how not to do regulation. So hopefully in Brazil we will learn from those. And I think another important point, because I think Brett had a question here, if there is any directives on RG or AML, etc. And at this moment in time, there really isn't. So again, this has to be manifested as well, and ideally, again, not to make it safe, make it secure, but don't overdo it, because otherwise, then again, players will go to the underworld rather than going to the license operators and going through the checks. So there needs to be a fair balance between of course, friction, speed, but at the same time security. So I think we have to have another conversation about that, but let's worry about this first. I think the next 120 days will be very crucial to the whole industry, but I would fully expect that we're not going to see any any sort of results or anything really tangible until at least next year in October. That's kind of my prediction, because that's the timelines that we had in Germany when it happened in October. Always seems kind of like a good month to deregulation, it seems.
Yeah.
Just
Very
before
good.
we all go, I want to invite everyone in the industry, operators, suppliers, media. We need to get together. Bernard Henning just mentioned that. I have been speaking to some media guys and operators. We need to get together. Then after we can continue the competition. But now we need to get together, everyone in the industry, and transfer the knowledge to these politicians so they can do the right thing. It is the time right now. Otherwise, it's long past.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alessandro, for that call to action. It's time for the industry to unite, educate these lawmakers, and tell them exactly what they're doing wrong, because there's lots to talk about. Roger, Thomas, Alessandro, thank you to all three of you so much for joining us. It's been really valuable for me and Nico and for everybody in the audience, I'm sure, to learn from your experiences and to learn from all your knowledge. So thank you all once again for joining us, and we will certainly have each of you back here on Weekly News very soon. It's been such a fantastic conversation, so thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Obrigado a
Thank you
todos.
all. Obrigado.
Bye. Bom dia. Ciao.
Muito obrigado. Ciao. There you have it, Nico. What about that?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome, mate. You know, there's so many lights actually started blinking in my brain. Like, oh, okay, that's another one. And yeah, it was, as said, you know, we covered the whole value chain of the overall, you know, operators, service providers, affiliate. Shout out once again also to all the comments, and as Thomas pointed out as well, we did not have any time to catch up on what has been commented. So it's valuable comments on this on our chat. Once again, shout out to Vitoldo Hendrich, who had been quite active, having and pointing out like very, very decent points, arguing very, very good. So shout out once again to you know, our community actually taking part of the conversation as well. Awesome. It's an awesome job today.
Absolutely, yeah. One of my favorite episodes we've done, I think. What a great discussion. I think all that remains to be said, Nico, is to say thank you once again to Playson, to Interactive, and to Hub 88 for supporting us so faithfully. It's a pleasure to have you guys on our side. Thanks to you, Nico, of course, because this would not be the same without you. And thanks once again to all the lively commenters and all our spectators and viewers today. What a fabulous discussion we've had.
Yeah.
And we hope you'll join us back here next week.
Yeah, and one question we can already answer with respect to the comment of Bernd Henning that, you know, all the existing operators who are actually live in Brazil already should, you know, align each other or form a union, which they already did. So we already have a union of operators in the Brazilian market, especially with 2018, as it was so hard to actually convince Bolsonaro, the former prime minister, who had just one vote. Like, okay, sports betting, again, not going to happen under my watch. So that's why we already had a union being formed by the operators in the Brazilian market, which is quite interesting, as we did not see this anywhere else before a market actually, you know, opening up officially, that existing operators forming a union. So shout out once again to the operators who actually talk to each other.
That's a great way to sign off, Nico. Alessandro Lisboa, Bernard Henning in the comments there. Thank you. Rafael Camargo, Fabio Chiberia. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.